This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stock Box interview.
Joining us today is Steve Sherry, the Executive Director of Oscillate PLC. Thank you very much for joining us again, Steve. It's good to be catching up. I know we've talked a couple of times. We talked back in January and, of course, July, where you talked about cutting costs, getting that money in a high-interest bank account while you made decisions, looking for opportunities in the mining and exploration space, looking at some RTO opportunities. Well, thank you very much for joining us. How are you, first of all?
Yeah, morning, Mark. Yeah, very well, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Well, of course, following on from those interviews, you have indeed completed a transaction. Back in July, you entered a heads of terms with Quantum Hydrogen, and now you've completed that transaction alongside raising £500,000 at the same time. So just first of all, on this project, I'm sure you've looked at you said you were looking at a number of deals when we've spoken before, a number of opportunities. I assume you've screened lots of others. So why have you chosen this one? What's so special about Quantum Hydrogen?
Well, we have screened a lot of opportunities, Mark. I mean, you're quite right. The last time we spoke, we were, optimizing the balance sheet, making sure we were fit for purpose. And within that period, I've screened a number of opportunities. And we had the benefit of, interest rates and our capital being sat in the bank, kind of given us the time and opportunity to make sure that we pick the right ones for our investors. And it's been a long process, but we've come to the end of that process now. And the reason that we've chosen quantum hydrogen is white hydrogen or natural hydrogen is a burgeoning market space, that we're seeing almost develop at a huge rate in front of our eyes. And it's an exciting environment for, my business to get involved in. And I keep thinking back to, that term, from that film where it says, be first, be smart or cheat. And I think, from a board's perspective at Oscillate, we never had an option to cheat. And because we have investors that sit at the forefront of everything that we do, and we are minded to make sure that we, perform effectively for them. So, being able to enter the space of hydrogen is about being first, and the environment of that resource is dramatic for the world. It's the only real opportunity that we have to decarbonize the energy sector, which is massively reliant on fossil fuels. So we, the combination of that and being smart has kind of brought us to a decision that we made strategically at board level. And when we saw this opportunity, it was kind of ticked every box that I was looking for in an opportunity, because I want something that's going to make a difference, be different, and that we're at the forefront of it. And I think some of the, people that are entering this space, we've got the likes of Bill Gates that's deployed just short of 300 million. We're seeing French collaborations of companies that are, really looking to develop at pace into this sector. So for us to have an opportunity to even be part of that, is really exciting. So it kind of lent itself, as the interest rate has fallen. I was cognizant of the fact that, we had a window, but it's all fallen in quite nicely. And, so we've done something now meaningful. And we've done something that's going to make a difference for Oscillate, and the timing couldn't have been better.
Okay. And white hydrogen then, is that another way of saying natural hydrogen, so naturally occurring hydrogen?
Well, this is naturally occurring hydrogen. That's right. That's in the subsurface of the world. So unlike all the other colours of hydrogen that you can read about, the natural hydrogen or white hydrogen is about being extracted out of the ground, rather like helium. So it doesn't require any other third-party kind of process to bring it to decarbonising the fossil fuel sector. So it's natural. what comes out the ground. And in fact, in Mali, some years ago, they drilled a water hole that came up dry. You can read about it in the news, and it's been flowing natural hydrogen that's been, dealing with all of the villages' energy needs within that sector. It's not depleted within a 7-year current production phase. So to find this resource is massive. And it can't be underestimated. And I think the benefit it can bring is absolutely off the scale for us. So the opportunity is mouth-watering. I'm so excited about it.
Well, I wonder, it's interesting because, of course, hydrogen, as many people know, is used in the green energy transition here, of course, with hydrogen, fuel cells, etc., and storing energy, that kind of thing. It's got a good use. The traditional way, almost the traditional way, but the most understood way is producing hydrogen through high energy intensity, isn't it? Through sort of, electrolysis or reverse electrolysis using solar if you can get it. But you say that the economics add up for sort of natural occurring hydrogen. Are they better than the sort of electrolysis method?
Well, the electrolysis method, okay, if you can do it via solar, that obviously gives a huge green element to it because you're using the Earth's sun to do that. The majority of hydrogen, I kind of put it in a way, it's a bit like using a diesel generator to charge an electric car. It just doesn't fulfill, the overall objective of but with natural hydrogen, there's no process involved outside of producing it at the wellhead, rather like natural gas would come from, reservoirs within the earth. So very similar to that. Comes out in a pure form and it's ready to use and it's ready to decarbonize industries that effectively, are using fossil fuels. So they're able to offset their carbon imprint by using natural hydrogen. And also the benefit as well, because we've entered the space in Minnesota, so a well-known jurisdiction in the United States. It's all about having your end user close to source as well. So that's another significant benefit.
Indeed. So when it comes to hydrogen mining, then that's a sector that's probably not that well sort of explored, or maybe not that mature. It's not often we hear about hydrogen exploration. Helium, as you've mentioned, yes, of course, and that's quite hot at the moment. Natural gas, oil, etc. But do you think we're going to see a lot more of these sort of hydrogen plays coming along? And when it comes to deposits of hydrogen, you've got your place in Minnesota here. What's so special about the area that you've acquired? Is it prolific for hydrogen deposits?
Well, in southern Minnesota, they found helium via pulsar. I think what you're just about to see develop into the marketplace in 2024 and 25 is a massive move worldwide towards trying to untap natural hydrogen. So, we're seeing key stakeholders like Bill Gates, who's going out and they're currently drilling a well in Kansas. So, but the market itself, everyone's been very quiet around their activity. So you try and find anything out, it's like the best kept secret. The reason that people are keeping it secret is because they're frightened of an effective land grab. And this was, talking to Jack Keys, who's one of the he's going to be on the board of Oscillate once we go through GM. He was very smart around gathering 60,000 acres, which is, a massive land package within northern Minnesota. It sits within the banded iron ranges, and the two conditions that, from a geological perspective that are required is a banded iron formation along with a natural water source. And what happens is over billions of years, the banded iron and the molecules in the water, that's what creates the hydrogen. So again, similarly in the mid-states, the continental mid-rift has had little to no movement in billions of years. So in his term, it's been boiling up. So, when it's found, it will be dramatic, and, it has the opportunity to do 100 times our money for us getting in at this level, because we're a small capitalized business. We've got a fantastic and enviable opportunity And we're just about to start a journey to unlock that. So it couldn't be more exciting.
And do you know that the hydrogen is there? I mean, what are the sort of near-term actions you've got to take on this project to prove it up?
Well, so no, I mean, this is the thing. It's, so there's going to be a huge amount of work that's going to be required from a satellite imaging perspective. You then go down onto the ground and you make further inquiries. But, helium and hydrogen, they're a non-hydrocarbon gas. And they're basically leaking out of the ground all around us. And of course, the majority just rises up into the atmosphere, and that's the world we live in. So what we'll be looking for is measures on the scale that will give us an indicator of where we can then start to concentrate our efforts. So, But I think, ostensibly, Mark, the whole world is currently finding its feet in this area. It's finding it at pace. And of course, I think, this is what makes me believe that through 2025, we're going to start to see a little bit more structure and a little bit more, built around this environment, because we're going to have, major companies that are looking to develop into this space. And this is not speculative. This is exactly what we're seeing, out in the world at the moment and the marketplace. So companies like Beam.Earth, investors can look at that. It's a website that's a collaboration of 4 major French companies, or they can look at Coloma, which is Bill Gates's vehicle, and just get a flavour of what they're doing. So they're the stakeholders that are currently throwing billion or millions at trying to identify natural hydrogen.
Well, it's interesting about Bill Gates as well, because, of course, Microsoft, the other day it was announced that they're, I think, buying up an old nuclear power plant to power the future of AI effectively. So I think maybe energy is going to be the new thing, the new hot commodity to have exposure to. I know you have been doing a bit of a road show, haven't you? I don't know if you wanted to take a few minutes just to, perhaps to our audience today, just explain what you've been explaining to the investors who've indeed backed you for that £500,000 there.
Yeah, okay. So listen, I mean, I actually need to go back a little further in that, Mark, because my investors have backed me. These are everyone that sits on the current register. And of course, we've changed the shape of Oscillate, and we've changed, our direction, and people have sat within our story, and the reward that I'm now able to provide to them is an opportunity for us to get involved in tomorrow's world. And of course, it's tomorrow's world today. What we've done, having announced the transaction, and the reason that I've also raised additional capital, if you can give me a couple of minutes, I'll take you through some slides within Oscillate that will show you effectively why we've done it, because we have a clear pathway that I want to take this company on. And I want to make sure that, all of my investors, not only the ones that were, that were supporting me yesterday, but also today's investors, but tomorrow's as well. And I want to set up a sustainable business that has, optionality for its shareholders. And the way that we've demonstrated that, and I took the lead, in more ways than one, because I've bought stock in the market pre this deal. I've now supported this transaction with £45,000 of my own money. And I've also ensured that the stakeholders that I've transacted with, Quantum Hydrogen Inc., I mean, they're made up of 3 basic directors. One was Ian Stalker, the other Neil Herbert. These guys are industry, juggernauts within this space. They've been the founders of Helium One. They've been the founders of Pulsar Energy. And then we've also got Jack Keys, who's coming on board. He's got 30 to 40 years experience in the oil and gas industry. And he has dealt with companies like Circle Oil. So it's not an unfamiliar environment for them, but it's certainly a fantastic opportunity for for Oscillate as a business to engage with them. So I'll take you through this slide here, and hopefully people will be able to see all of those orange dots that sit in here. This forms part of our 60,000 acres. And this area here around the orange and purple banding, that's tier 1 iron miners. And then if you look in the northeast area where I'm circling here, we've got the Great Lakes of Minnesota. And of course, northern Minnesota in itself is, prolific in its water source. So it's got all of those current ingredients from a geological perspective that can be extremely favourable for us. We obviously dealt and said about white hydrogen. That's all we're dealing with. And then I'll take you through, these are some of the companies that are operating in the world at the moment in the hydrogen space. And then these are the effective terms that we, proposed, which was, that Oscillate proposes to issue the share capital to Quantum of £1.4 million issued in stock at 1 pence. Now that stock has been locked in, so that's a hard lock-in, and that means, because I said to these guys at the inception, we've created a spirit within Oscillate, and we're looking for fair partners to join us on our journey. So we want to do business, but we want to do fair business. So the only way that I can demonstrate that is through you being able to commit to today and the future. So I think this transaction for us, and also this transaction for the directors of Quantum, starts that journey. So they're vested into our future, but they've got 140 million shares which are locked in for 12 months. We've then issued or proposed to issue 50 million shares to raise £500,000, and that gives us that total of 400 million shares. Now, people will know that 75% of Oscillate is owned by 9 participants. And while I can't disclose, people's, what they've put in for the composition of the 500,000, I have had significant support. So it brings me huge amounts of confidence that, now we've transacted in this manner and we've got the blending right. And we're still very enviable amongst our peers of having this type of project with this type of capital built within our company and the resilience that we've got financially. And it's a bit like with our advisors, Peterhouse. I mean, I worked with them, we worked smartly to navigate and ensure that we didn't trigger an RTO. And that's, a little bit like sort of being efficient with tax, really. We just sort of understood the rules. And when you're working with someone, a stakeholder like Peterhouse that was able to steer me and assist me, it meant that mitigating that RTO process brought us post-transaction to a cash level of £1 million. So if we add that 500,000, then we've got, a good amount of financial resilience that will enable me to enact not only the work program for Quantum in Minnesota that will bring us to a drill-ready status, but it'll also enable us, to potentially, look at, should we want to go to a more senior exchange like AIM? And of course, having been an investor myself for 20 years, I want to make sure that I've got that resilience in place so I don't have to lean on the market, and equally the market doesn't lean on me. So our financial future is secure, and it'll enable me to not only get all of the development, all of the announcements and the excitement out of the project, but it means that should I want to go to AIM, I've got enough money in my bank balance to do that without having to enter, the situation anywhere from a position of strength, which is where we entered this transaction. We were an attractive cash shell, and that means you can have different conversations. This is why we've been able to get a project of this strength. So that just gives you a little bit of a flavour. And then just taking you on, Mark, obviously, as put in the circular, the composition of the board of directors will change slightly. John Treacy, who's been instrumental in transacting this deal, will go to non-executive chairman. So he will carry out a lot of PLC work. I'll remain or have a title change to CEO. Jack Keys will come as the executive technical director. So he will deal with the project in Minnesota. And then further to that, and it would have been foolish of me not to have engaged Ian Stalker and Neil Herbert. So I've also got a suite of advisors that sit there, which means for me, gives me the confidence that everything I do within this business and the moves that we make will be considered, and they will be appropriate, and they will be geared towards us as a PLC and the promulgation of that information. So It's a really exciting thing that has happened, Mark.
Good. Well, I'm pleased to see that it's all sort of come to fruition as you hope to, Steve. And I'm sure there's probably, well, I'll ask the question: are there potentially more projects, more acquisitions to come in?
Well, it would be, yes, in short, and the reason being is because we want to build, a vehicle, and I want to build a business, which makes me proud and makes my investors proud. So, this is our space. This is what people can look forward to. And I think with the backing, of Neil and Ian, in our journey, we're looking, and I'm looking to make sure that I maximise exactly what we can get out of this option and opportunity. So I would like to add further projects, but I want to add them in a way that means that Oscillate PLC gets the benefit of everything. So, we won't be transacting loosely, and we won't be transacting in any other way outside of growing our business and making sure that, we just go leaps and bounds into the future.
Okay. 2 questions, if I may, Steve. If you could sort of answer them in short order, that would be good. But you've explained why you did that extra placing there to keep you in a good, strong cash position should you want to make other acquisitions or indeed move over to AIM. I wonder just on the appetite from the investors. Obviously, it was there because you managed to get the money, but was it a strong appetite from investors? And what were some of the key questions that the investors were asking you before they parted with their money?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, most, a lot of people, when we sat down with them and we gave the pitch, which is what happens, and it's almost, it's like the Dragon's Den, I'm the guy coming out the lift. They're the ones that are sat there with the steely eyes and looking a bit grumpy because they're waiting for you to validate the situation. But, I think a lot of people were concerned about, how have you secured these tenements? And I explained to them that as part of the process of all the legal due diligence, so we took legal opinions and we made sure that we dressed this acquisition in a manner that meant almost we can package what we've done and it becomes appropriate should we want to go on to AIM, as an example. So those legal opinions made sure that the company of Quantum PLC or Inc. was in good financial standing, the licenses were in good standing, and everything was exactly as it should be from a legal perspective. The other thing that they were asking was, well, what can we expect, from your company going forward? The majority of people already had an in-depth knowledge of, where Oscillate is. And I explained to them how the work program is going to start to kick out, massive pieces of news. And I think with Quantum being very quiet about their presence in Minnesota, I think now for them having the assurity of sitting within Oscillate PLC, I think they're now ready to talk and they know they've got an audience that wants to listen. So as well as the work program that we'll be, communicating to investors, and that's going to be pretty dynamic, we can expect some of these conversations, whether it be with universities, with the state, or with third-party stakeholders. We want everyone to get a little bit jealous about our environment, because then we can start conversations there that could have an outcome that would be favourable for us to have ultimate optionality. So, but they were just asking those sorts of questions, really. They were asking a lot of technical questions from Jack, around, well, how do you know there's hydrogen there? And he was explaining to them with, all of the previous, oil and gas exploration, a lot of the data that's sat, available to him. I mean, it's not a pick and a poke. This area is considered, and, it's felt as though it has all of the ingredients for what's required. So it's now up to us to go and unlock that. And while, we're at the very first start of that process, and someone challenged me on, well, why did you pay 1.4 million? It seems quite a lot. And I said to them, well, that's got two sides to the coin, because in a couple of years' time, or in a year's time, if we find commercial hydrogen and we've done 100 times our money, it's the sale of the century. Now, if in 2-3 years' time we've not found anything, well, I've overpaid for it. And that's the reality. But, we, like all these things, bit like Pulsar, in southern Minnesota, these stories have to start somewhere. And they're not starting, in my back garden. They're starting in an area which has got a banded iron formation running across the northern part of that state. They've got the water source there. So all the ingredients are there, which, gives us confidence. And of course, Jack, with his knowledge, is able to, communicate that better than I can. But there was enough rationale and reason. And of course, we got pretty full up pretty quickly. So, this is why, and equally, because we want to be fair and equitable, we put a broker option in place, which is currently open, and that will enable, shareholders that are not qualifying, that want to perhaps, come in on the same terms, because we're not looking to create an environment which is, selective around the who, because every shareholder, I have a responsibility to deliver for. So those were the questions, and, majority of them, we were able to home run the majority.
Good. Final question, Steve. You can see the proposed work program on the screen. Are you looking to get started pretty much immediately? Are we looking to get active throughout Q4?
Well, ASAP really, and it is ASAP. I mean, it couldn't come quick enough. So, we've got a hell of a lot of work that's going to take us from now, into Q1 next year. I've got a massive, I've got 3 basic work streams that this business will be carrying out. There will be a portion of work that I will be calling upon John Treacy, Ian Stalker and Neil Herbert to look at and go and get some quotes, because we are that person with money in our pocket, and AIM currently has 700 participants, which is significantly lower than where it was. And this is just our current reality in the marketplace. So there was never a better time for me to go and start to, challenge what it costs to go on to AIM. The next piece, and the major piece, will obviously be, the work program. And, we need to get on that absolutely as soon as possible, Mark. So there's going to be a lot of things going on. For my part, I'll be, working everyone as hard as they should be, because we're a PLC. I'll be looking at, some of our current positions and investments. And the reason being is because in front of everyone's eyes is the evolution of Oscillate. And we are morphing into a player, and we will continue to grow in size and stature. And my intention is to make everyone proud as shareholders.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, Steve Sherry, the Executive Director of Oscillate PLC.
You're welcome. Thanks very much, Mark. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programmes at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.